Hey guys, welcome back to the Jays with Them podcast. I'm your host Jay, and today we're talking about Saquon Barkley and why he should be at the top, at the forefront for the MVP award this year. Honestly, I think he should win it. So we'll talk about that, and just the Philadelphia Eagles kind of overall as they are now sitting at 9-2 at a good spot right now in the NFC conference. So we'll get into them. But before we get started, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Check us out here on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. On Apple Podcasts as well, and wherever you get your audio podcast, and follow us there. Follow us on the socials on Instagram, Twitter, Jays Fit Down Pod, and TikTok as well. So you can check us out there. Now, like I said, I hope you guys are having a great week. A lot of like schools are out for Thanksgiving break and stuff. I know we are. So I'm just taking this time to do this podcast right now because I was looking at something the other day. I'm like, man. Saquon Barkley, I was watching some of his, his runs, especially from that game against the Eagles where he had to set a single game rushing record for 255. I mean, the game against the Rams. He was playing with the Eagles. The game against the Rams where he set the NFL single game rushing record for 255 yards on the ground. So that was just phenomenal, play by him. And Saquon's been really having a great season since he got here to Philly. They signed him to a 3-year. $37 million deal, I believe, something around there, if I'm not mistaken. So good deal. He's still fairly young. 26-ish. So he's still at a good age. He hasn't really he's entering his prime. Right now, he's in that area. So, but Barkley's having a great season right now, especially on the ground. Leads the NFL with 233 carries. Leads the NFL in rushing yards with 1,392, and also leads the league in scrimmage yards with 1,649 yards from scrimmage. Is fourth in touchdowns and 10. So he's having a great season. I'm really impressed by what Saquon's doing. But we already knew he was a great player even back in those days with the Giants. Unfortunately, they just did not prioritize him, as much as they did Daniel Jones, who is now a member of the Vikings after the Giants released Daniel. Per his request. So it's the Giants really have to be just right now, oh my gosh, we are such idiots. We let this dude go and he's having a career year in our division rival on our division rivals team. That's crazy. But running backs usually they're not ever really discussed, in the MVP conversations. Obviously, Peterson did it back in 2012, but since then, no running back, no other player has won the MVP award besides a quarterback. It has been a quarterback every single year since then. So I'm at some point, I was really wondering, are we ever going to see a wide receiver win this award, or are we ever going to see a running back win this award? We're definitely not going to see offensive linemen win it, unfortunately. So all my fellow offensive linemen out there, sorry, you're never going to see that happen in the NFL. But even a defensive player, but we're seeing now that there's a possible chance a running back can win this award, and Saquon Barkley is just the guy to do it. I believe he is. He's a guy that he runs the way he runs. He's physical. It's hard to tackle him, but he's also elusive at the same time. You don't see many guys like that. Usually, you got your scat backs who are just kind of, you get them out in space and they're elusive. They're quick. They're jittery. Your Tony Pollards or your running backs like that. Kenyon Drake a while back ago when he was good. Guys out there, you give him the space, you throw him the football out there, or you give him the ball on the tosses outside those left and right tosses, the sweeps. You get blockers out in front of them, screen plays. They're gonna take it a long distance, But very few guys are physical, but also jittery at the same time. Christian McCaffrey, another one of those players out in San Francisco. Unfortunately, he hasn't had many healthy seasons in the league. But he's in the same way. I feel like that's a guy who, you can give him the ball inside, let him run between the tackles where that's the most physical part of where a running back could be running. You're going to get hit a lot that way instead of out on the outside on the edges, and he can run there too. So I believe really Saquon and Christian McCaffrey are really the only guys right now in the league that I'm aware of right now that can do both, successfully, very efficiently. And Saquon just happens to be one that's just, he's played in really all these games, most of the games, and he's having a great season. And then, like I said, when they played the Rams the other night, 255 yards on the ground. That's crazy. That's a single game rushing record. That's phenomenal. The Rams had no answers for it. They had no answers for it at all. Sean McVay could not come up with any type of defensive stops, and they just kept running Barkley, getting the ball in his hands and get him out there in space or other ways, and he was able to deliver for them. And they're going to need that. The Eagles are 9-2 right now. They had a little bit of a skid. They're going through a little skid early in the year, and then they kind of turned it around. Some people are attributing that to Nick Sirianni shaving his head. Some people are attributing it to the Eagles kind of just locking in and focusing on what they do best and kind of executing that right, and still some things that they could be doing better. But all in all, they're doing good right now. And if I'm not mistaken, they're sitting right behind Detroit as far as the top two seeds in the NFC. So the Lions are 10-1. Like, they might just win the conference and go to the Super Bowl. But the Eagles are not far behind, and they seem like they're kind of gelling together. They're starting to figure out the type of football that they want to play, the type of football that they know they can play. And Saquon Barkley's been a huge part of that. When he's run the ball successfully, they're winning their ball games pretty much. They're winning the games. They're winning those games. Like, he's out getting out in space, and he's like breaking those multiple 50+ yard runs. Like, that's the Eagles are at their best because this is a team that their main anchor is their offensive line. It always kind of has been for a long time. And the Eagles haven't had much of a consistent running room really the last couple of years, since they went to Super Bowl in 2018 with LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi. I mean, there was a decent running room then. Nothing compared to this level. Since then, it's just kind of been like a revolving door. DeAndre Swift had an okay year for them last year. Miles Sanders kind of found his way out of the rotation. Eventually, he left to go to Carolina. So it's like, they finally have a star running back. They got a tank at that position, which is what you really need in today's league. Like, everybody talks about the passing game, which is very important. Like, a lot of teams pass the football, but you need a ground game that is going to win you those football games late, in December, January, February, if you make the Super Bowl. Like, that's where the game is won on the ground. When you're able to get those tough yards, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Can you get a yard, 4th and inches? Can you get that inch? Can you punch it down in the red zone when your passing game hasn't really, when they're not going to let you probably pass the football there, right? Analytically, situationally, this is the best play for you to run. Can you do that? Can you rely on your running back to get you that yard, to get you that touchdown? That's what you're going to need when you come out to the postseason and you play late in January in these games, especially in the NFC. You're playing against teams like, the Vikings, the Lions at some point, these top NFC seeds. You're going to need that ground game to kind of balance that attack. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day because those teams also have good defenses, especially Minnesota that can get after the passer, and Detroit too. Even though they lost Aiden Hutchinson, but so it's like you're going to need to be able to run the football to balance that game plan to keep the defense, on their heels. And Philly is in a position to do that with Saquon Barkley right now, and had he not gone to the Eagles, I don't think the Eagles would probably be sitting where they are right now, second in NFC. And I don't think Saquon would be having the year he's having right now because the Giants' offensive line is abysmal. They rank like 28th on Pro Football Focus's, ranking list as far as like efficiency and things like that. They measure those things, and their offensive line is horrible, as we saw. If you watch any Giants football game or even a clip of a Giants football game, you see like they don't. It's just something that they don't prioritize. It's not an epitome of their offense, as it probably should be. I think an offensive line should be the epitome of any offense as far as like the anchor, because you need time to pass the ball. You also need holes to run the football through. And if you don't have a good offensive line, you're not going to be able to do that. So the Eagles have built that over the years with Lane Johnson, Staple at right tackle, and Mailata at left tackle. They lost Jason Kelsey to retirement, but they're still holding strong there, and Like it's just they're a good unit. And I love what I'm seeing out of the Eagles right now. I didn't think I would say this earlier in the year because they were just looking pretty bad. Jalen Hurts was looking bad, but now it seems like everybody's kind of getting on the same page. Defense. They lost Brandon Graham to a pec injury, so they're probably gonna look for some edge help there. See what's out on the market. But honestly, I mean, looking at the Eagles overall, they're in a good spot. They're in a good place. I think if they finish the year strong, they can make another run at the Super Bowl, possibly. I mean, you have to get through the Lions. You got to get through the Lions. That's a tough thing, and they have shown that they are not to be messed with this year. They have shown it's not easy to beat them because they can beat you in a number of different ways. The Eagles are it would be a very good matchup. That's something I could definitely say. Like if we got a Lions and Eagles playoff game, or it's a divisional conference championship, like that's going to be a great game. More likely than not, it would be a conference championship. But I think that would be an awesome game to see those two match up against each other again and see how much like Barkley's ability to run the football and catch the ball out the backfield too. That's another thing. Like if you key on him running, they can toss it to him out the backfield too. He can line up out wide, those different spots, run those angle routes, running, some of those slants, those, some of those intermediates, like the wheels, like, Barkley can run those routes. He's a bona fide pass catcher at the running back position. So that being said, I think the Eagles should continue to utilize him that way, in any way possible. Get one of your best players to football in his hands. You got Jalen Hurts too at quarterback. Teams are going to key in on him too because he can pull it down and run it. They got to respect his arm talent, even though he's may not have the best year that he wanted to have, that he's wanting to have right now. Got to respect his arm talent. Got to respect that. You got to respect Saquon Barkley's running ability, but at the same time, you got to respect his ability to receive the ball, too, out the backfield. So I'm really interested to see how they'll go about him, throughout the rest of the year. But I definitely think he should be the MVP of the NFL this year. I don't see anybody else Josh Allen's having a great year in Buffalo, but, come on. Let's give the award to somebody besides a quarterback. And now what also helped Josh's case was that them winning that game against Kansas City at home, which was huge for them. In that rivalry they have between, the Bills and the Chiefs. So probably help this case out. But I honestly do believe that Saquon Barkley should be at least in the conversation. He already is, but he should be more seriously in the conversation to be the most valuable player of the 2024 through 2025 season. Like, guys, think about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Saquon Barkley should be MVP, should be in the conversation, or not at all? You don't disagree? Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time on Jay's Fifth Down Podcast.